Hey, what is up, Sopranos fans? Kino here. I thought it would be fun to make a little video like this, responding to your hot takes about the show. If you don't know what a hot take is, it's kind of just a meme word. It refers to like controversial opinions, things that are not like mainstream opinions about the show. And I figured it'd be fun to poll my community. I posted about this on Discord, on the YouTube community post, and just got a whole bunch of quote-unquote controversial opinions. I think a lot of you don't quite know what a hot take is. I've seen things being like, Tony Soprano is the greatest character of all time. That's not really a hot take. That's a very mainstream opinion. But I did manage to get a handful of good hot takes here that I think will spark some discussion, and I figured I would just respond directly in this video to those. Real quick, if you want to be part of any future videos like this, have your opinions or comments shown in the video, make sure you've joined my Discord. The link for that is in the description of this video. That's where I usually poll people and get opinions about stuff that I'm going to do in the videos. It's a great community. Definitely go join that. But without further ado, let's get into some horrible opinions you all have about the show. Okay, first up here we have from Bravo Gus Gilligan Chase says, Adriana deserved her fate. She knew the stakes and the ins and outs of the life. Instead of going to the family for help, she selfishly chose to be a rat. Vafangul. I assume that's the gesture he was referring to when he said that. Vafangul. Alright, so right off the bat, this is going to be a controversial one. If you've been following me for a while, you know what my relationship to Adriana is like.
Ah, well, if it isn't the simps.
Obviously, I'm very much a supporter of Adriana. I think she's very innocent. I love her character. And I don't quite get the thoughts that people have about Adriana being like selfish and being a rat, when the reason she became an informant wasn't to save herself, it was to save Christopher. The FBI made her think that without supporting them, not only would she and Christopher potentially go to jail, but they also threatened to reveal to Tony that Adriana had brought an undercover FBI agent into his house. And obviously, if that was the case, then both of their lives would be in danger, as Christopher confirmed that it was for her being an informant. So I don't think she was selfish in doing that. Was she naive and taken advantage of by the FBI? Absolutely. I think that the way that they played her like that was a little bit dirty. They obviously endangered her life. And ultimately, I think the main reason she died was, of course, Tony and Christopher, who actively killed her. But the FBI played a big part in exposing her to that risk and getting her in trouble like that. And yes, of course, she knew that Christopher was in the mafia. She knew how it worked. Her Uncle Richie and Uncle Jackie were, in the mafia. So she knew about this life, but I think she just had a naivety about her. I think she was a very young girl who didn't maybe quite take in all the risks of what it meant to be in the life, and I don't think she deserved to die for that. I still sympathize with her. I don't quite get all the Adriana hate, but you know what? I'm an Adriana simp. What can I say? All right, next up, we have Broly Kulos Hermanos says, Blundetto sucks, Season 5 sucks. Very succinct there. This is a very common opinion. I saw a lot of comments basically saying that like Season 5 is the worst season, and a lot of people really hate Tony Blundetto as a character. They feel like he comes out of nowhere, his arc is all over the place, and he just, kind of dies and then leaves the show worse off because of that. I agree that Tony Blundetto's arc was probably not completed in the way that the showrunner originally wanted it to be. If you've listened to behind the scenes interviews and stuff like that, you'll know that they originally wanted Steve Buscemi for 2 seasons, Season 5 and Season 6. However, they kind of wrote themselves into a corner with what he had done with New York and potentially starting a war with New York, and they realized that they had to kill him off. I will say Tony Blundetto's arc, I see what they were going for. It was about a con man trying to go straight and then slowly being sucked back into the life, and ultimately that's what leads to his death. I will agree, though, that the way they handled it, it felt a little bit rushed. It would have been more natural over the course of 2 seasons, but unfortunately that's just how things go sometimes. I do think Tony Blundetto was a good character for the show. I think he sets up some dominoes that later fall in season 6, like the war between Phil Leotardo and New Jersey. But ultimately, yeah, I think season 5 is... I wouldn't say weak. I like the whole Tony and Carmela arc in season 5. I think that's actually a very strong arc, their relationship. The whole Tony coming through the backyard, representing the bear. I think that's great stuff. But yeah, I'd say season 5 is towards the bottom of the list of seasons for me. I still think season 1 is the weakest season overall. But yeah, I think that Blundetto's arc, if it had been a little bit more fleshed out, would have made that season all the better. Alright, next we have Abdul Gabagool. Opinion: Carmela wasn't that bad, and people give her too much shit. This is a hot take. I don't think it's hot at all. I just agree with it 100%. I do not get the hate that people give to Carmela. I don't get the hate that people give a lot of the wife characters on all of these shows, like Mad Men, and especially Breaking Bad. Like, the Skylar White hate is completely overblown. I at least get it in the case of Skylar. I get why people don't like her. I don't get why people don't like Carmela. Was she, like, selfish and money obsessed? Sure. But point me out a character on The Sopranos who wasn't obsessed with money. Point me out someone who wasn't selfish and hypocritical. And she was all of those things, sure, but I think she's also one of the most fascinating female characters I've ever seen in any media. I think her relationship with Tony is incredible. I think her relationship with feminism in general was very nuanced and well written. Like, she's not just trying to become an independent woman. In fact, just the opposite in most cases. She wants to be taken care of. She wants to be pampered, but she also wants the kind of independence, and she envies other women in her life like Meadow or Angie Bompancero, who have kind of broken free from being dependent on a man. And I think that's just very well written. I think most characters on the show want two different things at the exact same time. They want both ends of the spectrum. Tony wants to be this ruthless, tough mob boss, but at the same time he wants to be able to express his emotions and wants to be able to be vulnerable, be the little boy that's in his heart, and those ideas are not congruent with each other. And I think Carmela's the exact same way. So I really don't understand why people don't like her on the show. I think she's fantastically written. I love Carmela. She's one of my top characters on the show by far. Pumpkin King 64 says, the dream sequences detract from the show and should have been substantially minimized, if not outright erased. Okay, this is definitely a controversial opinion. There's people who love the dream sequences and there's people who absolutely hate them. Not just in The Sopranos, but people hate dream sequences in shows, like, no matter what. They just don't like them. I sort of get why they don't like them. It's kind of giving the creator license to just do whatever they want without consequences. They can just have, like, the most salacious things happen in these dream sequences and be like, oh, it's just a dream, it doesn't matter. Mad Men had a dream sequence just like this, where I was like, oh damn, they did something very shocking, and then they just completely pulled back because it was a dream sequence. So I can see why people don't like dream sequences. I will say in The Sopranos, I think they are very thematic, and they're very limited. The dream sequences don't usually go on too long. The only two exceptions to that are Funhouse, which I also don't think was that long. I think it was only maybe less than a third of the episode was the dream sequence. The one that goes on for a long time is, of course, the test stream. It goes on for about half the episode. So I can see why people don't like the test stream because of that. But I will say that I think it was important to Tony kind of dealing with his thoughts about Tony Blundetto. But as we just discussed before, people don't like Tony Blundetto either. So I can totally understand why the test stream is a controversial episode. But ultimately, I think there's a lot of good work in there. And especially actually Tony's coma dream, which is another long dream sequence that weaves its way throughout like 2 episodes. Is one of the best dream sequences I've ever seen. I think it's absolutely perfectly thematic, and the show would be way worse if you cut the coma dream. So I'm going to disagree with this commenter about the dream sequences. Ian7064 says, Gabagool is only okay. Wow, someone criticizing Gabagool. Get this man out of the fucking Sopranos community here. Gabagool is the manna from heaven of the Sopranos community. If you guys saw my 50K live stream celebration, the stream that I did when I hit 50,000 subscribers, you'll know that I did a Gabagool mukbang where I got half a pound of Gabagool and just went to town on that. I ate some other Sopranos foods as well, like onion rings and orange juice with shum pulp. So I'm familiar with Gabagool. It was actually the first time I ever ate it, and I will say I thought it was a little bit disappointing. It tasted honestly just like a ham to me. It tasted like maybe slightly funky. I probably didn't get Gabagool that had been aged that long. Obviously, with anything kind of cured like that, the longer it cures, the more you're going to develop those funky flavors. But this was the only Gabagool I could find at my local Italian deli. So I do prefer some other cured meats over Gabagool, but it's not disgusting. It's not bad. It's just kind of bland, at least the one that I had. So I think in general I would prefer some other cured sausages over Gabagool. But the reason Gabagool is even so popular in the community is just because it's fun to say. It's like a funny word that people just love to repeat over and over again. And that's why it's become such a meme, not only in the Sopranos community, but I think in the general public as well.
I don't have to have
What
that.
he's trying to say is,
Guys,
Gabagool.
all right.
I don't really think that we have that.
That's okay.
Bring in the Gabagool.
An Absurd Existence, who is another content creator, go check out their channel. I hate Paulie. Let me tell you a couple of 3 things. Paulie is an obnoxious character. He's always complaining, always causing issues for the crew. Moreover, the guy strangles an old lady and robs her just to get back into Tony's good graces after he's been yapping to Johnny Sack. I wonder how many years in purgatory that'll be. Wow, this is definitely a hot take. This is something that a lot of Sopranos fans are going to disagree with. Paulie is one of everyone's favorite characters of all time. And I definitely know what it's like to dislike a very popular character if you saw my Lala Salamanca video, which is still absolutely 100% true, by the way. Don't fight me on that. But this comment about Paulie is interesting. It would surprise me if someone genuinely hated Paulie, like they didn't want him on the show. Like, Paulie is so funny. He's like the heart of the show. He's very entertaining. So if you're saying you hate Paulie because you don't want him on the show, hard disagree on that. But all the stuff you're pointing out about Paulie in this comment, I do agree with. Paulie was not nearly the good, like, loyal gangster that I think some people think he is. He would betray Tony at the drop of a hat if he felt it was in his best interest. There's even a scene where he's talking with Johnny Sack, not just like telling him Tony's business, but like suggesting that, like, hey, if you guys kill Tony, I'll step in as boss. And he's trying to make that happen. So Paulie is absolutely not loyal at all. He's not really a friend to Tony. Like, they're friends on superficial levels, but they would absolutely betray each other, which we saw in the episode where they go down to Florida. Tony was absolutely considering killing Paulie, and as much as there is love between the two, and I think there is to an extent, like Beansy says, Paulie does love Tony and look up to him. They would absolutely kill each other at the drop of a hat. So yeah, Paulie is a terrible person, not just in terms of being like all the gangsters are kind of terrible people, but like very specifically, Paulie is a horrible human being for all the stuff he does, completely hypocritical, and yeah, there's that whole, we're family vibe he has with all the mobsters is complete bullshit. So I get what this comment is going for. Wings of I don't know what the rest of that says. I think it's Wings of Redemption or something, but it says that Jimmy Altieri was not a rat. Okay, this is going to be a controversial one that does not have a specific answer. I think Jimmy Altieri was a rat. In the first season, they set up this question of whether Jimmy's a rat or whether Big Pussy is a rat, and later they confirmed that Big Pussy is a rat. But I don't think that means that Jimmy wasn't a rat as well. I think they did flip him. I think the fact that he says, "Oh my God," when Silvio comes and is about to shoot him, I don't think that's just surprise about the fact he's going to die. I think that is him realizing that they know he's a rat, and he knows that his death is coming because of that. The reason I think that is because it fits with the theme, or not theme, but the pattern in the show that all of Tony's capos become rats. It's not just Jimmy. Ray Curto is confirmed 100% to be a rat, and Larry Barisi, even though he gives the FBI false information, he says that it was Jackie Aprile who killed Willie Overall when it was actually Tony. He's still giving information to the FBI. You're not supposed to talk in general. I mean, look at Phil's reaction to Johnny Sack admitting to the existence of the mob. He didn't name anyone specifically, but he's never supposed to admit to the existence of organized crime. And I think Larry Barisi, even giving lies to the FBI like that, would still count as being a rat. Maybe not as bad as being a rat to these other rats, but definitely still not something to be tolerated. And of course, Carlo Gervasi becomes a rat in the final episode as well. So there's a pattern of all of Tony's capos becoming informants, and I think that Jimmy definitely fits that as well. I think he was a rat, but it's left open to interpretation. I could see the arguments for and against that. Jake Tingy 7886 says, not exactly a hot take if you're David Chase, but The Sopranos is a liberal show, depicting toxic masculinity, stifling tradition, and privileged prejudice in negative lights. Any hero worshipping of Tone and the mob is missing the point completely. Yeah, this is definitely something I agree with. I don't think that the show was celebrating any of the kind of old school machismo that the mob is all about. And you're right, The Sopranos is definitely a liberal show. Like, if you look at David Chase's history, he is a liberal guy. The writers were all liberal people. So it's kind of funny that The Sopranos appeals to a lot of hardcore conservative people who are like, yeah, I agree with Tony about, all these issues, when it's very clear that the writers do not agree with it, and they're giving him bad arguments for that type of stuff. I will say, in counter to this, while The Sopranos is a liberal show and definitely has very liberal ideas, it's a different kind of liberalism from like a lot of the modern shows that people have problems with. The things that people describe as woke shows, which I know is a loaded term as well. I'm not going to get into all of that right now, but the point of it is, a lot of shows nowadays, like the writing, what people hate about a lot of those shows is the writing is so on the nose and terrible that it's annoying. It just ruins the show. And The Sopranos, while it did have a lot of the same points, presented those ideas in a much more well-written way. Tony isn't just a bumbling buffoon. He is a character who is written with respect, and even though some of his ideas are wrong, and they definitely are, they're given the character enough depth here where he's not just a joke for the sake of making a straw man argument. It's like they treat all the characters, even the problematic ones, as genuine human beings, and I think that's why people like this shows like The Sopranos over a lot of shows that just have very cheap writing like that. So that's my only criticism of this, but I definitely agree with your point here. Burner says, The Sopranos pilot, while groundbreaking, has not aged well. I'm going to agree with this. I know that's kind of heresy because people, it's the first episode and people love the show, so they feel like they have to love the pilot. The pilot is one of the weaker episodes of the show, honestly. Like, they really honed in on what the tone of the show was a little bit into season 1, but especially into season 2. I think season 1 in general is one of the weaker seasons of the show. And so even though it is controversial to say this, I'm not a huge fan of the pilot. In fact, I typically recommend to people that when you're trying to introduce someone to the show, don't start with the pilot. I would actually suggest Pine Barrens to be the first episode you show people. Pine Barrens is a great standalone episode in and of itself. You don't really need to know anything about the show, but it's so funny and engaging that I think people will want to keep watching. And then from there, you go back to the start and watch from the beginning. But again, that's my opinion. I know some people will hate me for saying that. They'll say, like, how could you not start at the beginning? But you have to remember that The Sopranos is not like a really plot-heavy show. It's not a show where you have to watch one episode to the next. Like, you can honestly skip around. the episodes are so self-contained that they work as individual little movies more so than just one part of a larger show. Sure, there are plot details that carry over between episodes, but it's not mandatory. Those are definitely not the focus. The focus is on the individual storyline within each episode itself. So I'm gonna agree with this post here. Simeon STT says skipping the Melfi scenes on rewatch is fine. I agree that skipping any scenes you want is fine. I mean, it's your show. Like, you can watch it however you want to. I skip some episodes when I rewatch a show because I've just seen them a million times. I will say, though, I picked this comment because it gets at something, which is people don't like Melfi. They think her scenes are boring. They're like, you can cut the Melfi stuff entirely and the show would be better. That's not what this comment is suggesting per se, but I wanted to talk about that. Fundamentally disagree about that. I think that the Melfi scenes are critical for understanding Tony. The Sopranos is a show about psychology, and Melfi is a strong character in her own right. The scenes are not just about Tony. Oftentimes, they're about what Melfi's going through in the episode as well. And so I think the show would not be the show it is without those therapy scenes. I think it's an absolutely critical part of the show's narrative. Okay, last question I'm going to answer, or last comment I'm going to answer here. Hey Tay says, was the Vito gay drama necessary, and what was its purpose? Was it to humanize a gay character, considering how homophobic a number of other characters, Phil, Carmela, Tony, etc., were shown to be in previous seasons? This isn't a hot take per se, it's a question, so you're supposed to give a statement when it's a hot take, but I did want to end on this because I did want to talk about the Vito arc, which is a very controversial one in the show. Some people think it was completely unnecessary. They thought it was just, again, kind of woke pandering to have a story arc about Vito being gay. I don't think that it's to humanize a gay character, because if you look at it, if they wanted to do that, they would make Vito a saint, and he was unjustly killed for being gay. I mean, he was unjustly killed for being gay, but he was a scumbag in his own right. In fact, right before he dies, he kills an innocent person whose car he hit on the way back. So he's absolutely a scumbag, and he deserved to die. And I think if they were trying to pander to the audience or something like that, they would make him, again, just a saint. But I think the point of Vito's arc with being gay and stuff like that wasn't necessarily to pander to modern audiences or things like that. I think it was to address a real phenomenon, which is, people are gay in real life, and how would they deal with that? And in fact, the kind of changing moral attitudes about homosexuality is an important part of, like, Tony's development, right? Like, he even says to Melfi, he's like it's tradition, we hate gays, but ultimately I don't really care. He's a more modern gangster than someone like Phil Leotardo, who's so old school. He just can't let this go, even though ultimately it doesn't really matter, right? Like, Vito's like away, it's not going to affect him in any way, but he feels like he has to defend his honor. Somehow Vito being gay offended his honor. So I think that's an important part of the kind of statements about modernization when it comes to the mafia and about life in America in general. But I also think it has an important plot function, which is that this is just another thing that's getting between Tony and Phil. This is one of the sparks that sets off the fire between the war between New York and New Jersey. So ultimately, I think it was important. I don't think they should have cut it. I think it did lead to some important plot and character developments. I will say that some of the things they were suggesting about Vito, like the scene where he goes and picks out a vase, and like the guy's like, "Oh, you're a natural at this," and it's implying that he's a natural at decorating because he's gay, I think is a little bit reductive. I don't quite know if being gay makes you a great decorator or stuff like that, but so there were some elements about his storyline that I thought were a little cringy, but ultimately I do think it was an important part of the show. But anyway, that is the hot takes video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you like this, I'll do some more of these, maybe for other shows like Breaking Bad or The Wire. I'd love to continue to make these. But thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for more Sopranos content coming soon. These hot takes were brought to you by these hot patrons: Matt Joyce, Uncle Mike, Sam Cedarland, and Celery Man.